All right, so first thing first, we were looking at what makes something be alive or not. We're talking about the properties of life. And we said that according to biologists, everything that's alive has these properties. And we're going to talk about them one at a time. We'll probably get through most of these today. A couple of them we've already talked about. Let's do a quick review of the ones we've already mentioned. First of all, we said every kind of living thing is organized on different levels. And you can see some of those levels in this diagram. But let's start by looking here. We said yesterday that an atom is the smallest particle of something that does what? Somebody help me out. Smallest particle of something that does what? Yeah, help me out. Sort of. We talked about a big chunk of gold up here, and we said if we had something that could cut up gold into atoms, would it still be gold if we just had atoms laying up here? Yeah, it would still be gold. But if we cut the atoms, would it be gold anymore? No, it's changed what it is. So an atom is the smallest particle of a substance that keeps the properties of that substance. If you break up atoms, it's something different. If we broke gold in half, a gold atom in half, it wouldn't be gold anymore. It'd be element number 39 and element number 40. Basically half of gold, your yttrium and zirconium. It would change. It would look different. It would act different. Then we said if you keep moving up, groups of atoms that are attached together, those are molecules, like H2O, O2. Groups of atoms that are chemically bonded together, those are molecules. And we said a bunch of molecules together make up cells. I talked about two key words that you ought to know when we ask you to define cells. I said that cells are the basic units of what? Two things. Structure and function. Associate those two words with cells. Structure and function. Cells make you, and they also do whatever you do. A bunch of cells put together make up what? Tissues. And there's lots of tissues in animals. Who can tell me a type of tissue that you have? Skin. Somebody tell me another one.
Muscle.
Muscle. Tell me another one. Hold that thought. That blood falls into a big category. We'll get to that one in a second. So far I said skin and muscle. Nervous. And then the other one is the one that blood goes into. It's called connective tissue. Think about what blood does. Blood sort of connects your whole body together, right? Because it flows through. And also you got things like ligaments and tendons, things that actually hold your bones and your muscles together. Those are connective tissues. Put a bunch of tissues together, you got organs. And we got lots of organs. We talked about a couple yesterday. Things like the heart, stomach, the intestines, the spleen, pancreas, the liver. Those are all organs. And then you go down to organ systems. Put a bunch of organs together. Somebody name a system in your body. Respiratory, or cardiovascular, or skeletal. Tell me another one. Excretory, which is the one that gets your waste out. Endocrine makes hormones. There's bunches of them. All the systems put together make up an individual living thing, an organism. Organisms are you. You're an organism. A bacteria is an organism. Separate, individual living things. A bunch of organisms in a group make up a population. But what's got to be the case with those organisms if they're in the same population? Yeah. They got to be the same kind of thing, right? They got to be the same species. So population is same species, same place, same time. A bunch of different populations together make up a community. So in this building right now, the people in here, that's one population. There's probably also some mice in the building. That's a different population. There's all kinds of different bacteria. Each one of those different kinds would be a different population. Together, we make up the community of Buckhorn High School. If we throw in the environment with a community, that gives us an ecosystem. An ecosystem is how a community interacts with the environment. And then finally, what do we say the biosphere was? It's Earth. And how all the living things and how all the environments do what? Connect. What's another word we might use?
Work together.
Work together, interact. Those are the kinds of things we're looking for. So that's organization. All living things are organized. The next one we're going to mention is cells. We talked a little bit about this yesterday too. We said that cells are the basic units again of what? Structure and function. Life is also okay. They're basic units of life as well. But we said that there are some things out there that are made of one single cell, unicellular. And we listed some examples. What were they? Bacteria. What else? Protists, like amoebas and parameciums and euglenias. You guys have paid much attention to the news. There's this kind of amoeba that lives in like lakes and ponds. Anybody notice what's happening with that lately? Oh no, it's worse than that.
It goes up your nose and like hits your brain.
Yeah, it goes up your nose and hits your brain. It's a brain-eating amoeba. Now it's really rare, but there's been a couple of cases of it in the last year in the United States where somebody's been skiing or swimming in the lake and they start getting headaches. You find out they've got this brain-eating amoeba infection. You want to say something?
Yeah. I was watching that show Monsters Inside Me.
Oh, that's an awesome show.
Yeah, and I saw a boy went out like on the river skiing, and it like parasite got up in his nose or something like this.
Did it kill him or was he okay? Yeah, it's hard to treat. Most doctors don't know what it is until it's too late, until you're dead and they're doing an autopsy. Yeah.
My mom was doing, she's a nurse, and she had someone that did that, a patient, and she had like barely any limbs or anything. Like her face, it was awful.
Okay, that probably is not amoeba. That's probably a bacterial thing, but it's similar.
Yeah, I guess. But
Probably a
she,
skin-eating
lost
bacteria.
all of her limbs and stuff. So I don't know why she just didn't say let me go. Because she was nothing. She just
Yeah, she's alive though.
yeah, she's
It counts.
alive. I was like,
Good stuff. All right, anyway, a lot of things are also multicellular though. You're made of millions, probably billions of cells, maybe even trillions. And all those cells are communicating with each other, working together, making you what you are. All the animals are multicellular, plants are multicellular, fungi are multicellular. But some of the bacteria are unicellular and so are the protists for the most part. The other thing we talked about with cells is there's really two kinds of cells on Earth, prokaryotic and eukaryotic. And the thing that you need to know, which one supposedly came first?
Okay, yeah.
Prokaryotic. And those are things like what? What kinds of things have prokaryotic? Yeah, bacteria. And what are they missing that other cells, that the eukaryotic cells have? All right, yep. And remember, let's don't just say a nucleus. Let's say a nucleus that's what? Contained. DNA that's enclosed, separated. So that they have no enclosed nucleus. And what else are they missing that eukaryotic cells have? The organelles, like mitochondria and chloroplasts and that kind of stuff. So no organelles.
Teachers, please pardon interruption. Please send all juniors to the cafeteria at this time for a junior magazine meeting. Please send all juniors at this time for a junior meeting in the cafeteria. Thank you.
All right, so the organelle thing here. We know that organelles. No, I think you'll be back. Push that door back too. The organelles are these little parts that have certain jobs, right? What we say the advantage of that was? Having these little enclosed parts that do certain things. Yeah, they become really good at that one thing, right? And that means the whole cell becomes more what? More efficient. Whereas with the bacteria, that one cell has to do what? Everything, which means it's probably not good at what? Probably not good at anything, right? If you had to build a whole car, would you want to drive it? Probably not, okay? Probably not. And that's kind of the way bacteria are. But the eukaryotic cells have all these little parts that just do one thing. They become really good at that one thing. So the whole cell becomes good at what? You have little parts that become good at one thing, the whole cell becomes good at what? Everything. It makes them more efficient. Remember, your cells are eukaryotic. All right, and then I think we left off with the energy, right? That's the last one we got to yesterday, am I correct? No, we went further than, okay. All right, we'll keep going then. So we got through further than I was thinking. We said energy is the ability to do what? Work. Or maybe we might say energy is the ability to what? Move. Energy is the ability to do work or to move. And all of our energy comes from where? Yeah, but after that. Food. The reason we eat mostly is to get energy. Now you want to get some vitamins and some minerals and stuff from your food too, but the main reason you eat is to get calories. Ultimately though, all that energy did come from the sun. We said that autotrophs are things that do what? Make their own food, usually using energy from where? Sun. And the most common way of being an autotroph is to do photosynthesis. In photosynthesis, plants are using light energy and converting it into what? Yeah, let's say chemical energy, but it's sugar. And they're using light energy to make sugar. Other than plants, what are some things that can do photosynthesis? Other than plants. Some bacteria, not most of them, but some of them. And algae, little stuff you see like floating on the surface of a pond or a lake or even the ocean for that matter. You, though, are a heterotroph, which essentially means what? Yeah, you have to eat. To get energy, you have to eat. Some heterotrophs are herbivores. They just eat what? They just eat plants. Some are carnivores. They only eat meat. A lot are omnivores, like you, which means they eat a little of both, right? They eat whatever they can get, mostly. Now, we talked about this a lot yesterday. ATP. That's the kind of molecule in your body. And I told you to think of it like what?
Battery.
A battery that powers what? Everything you do. When you eat, your body is going to break down that food and use the energy in that food to essentially charge up your ATP batteries. It's going to use it to make ATP. That ATP then powers everything that you do.
Does ATP stand for anything?
Yeah, it stands for adenosine triphosphate. For right now, that's not important for you. We'll get to that. Don't worry about that right now. We'll get there. And then another theme that we'll go ahead and talk about here in a second is metabolism. And we said there's really two ways to think about metabolism. One, you can think of it how fast you do what? Use up energy. That's one good way to think about it. But we also said that everything in your body that you do is chemistry, right? It's a chemical reaction. And you can think of metabolism as sort of the sum, all those reactions put together. Because everything you do is chemistry. So metabolism is the sum of all those reactions. All right, we talked about reproduction. What did we say, according to scientists, the purpose of life is? Yeah, to make sure that your genes make it where? Forever. That they just keep getting passed on forever. Because really, if your genes make it, you sort of live forever, right? You're living through your genes. 6 generations from now, if you had some kids, maybe your kids had kids, and their kids had kids. Part of you still alive, right? You're living through your genes. That's sort of, according to biology, the purpose of life. We said that some things reproduce asexually, which means what? No mate. They just sort of split, right? And what's the advantage of reproducing that way? It's fast, and also it takes less weight. That's what fast means, right? Takes less energy, because think about, we said to think about like lions and moose and stuff like that. Those big old males are having to fight each other to get mates, right? And it takes a lot of energy to do that, a lot of effort. Asexual, you don't have to worry about that. What's something that reproduces asexually? Bacteria, sort of just split in half. Protists that we talked about, it's sort of split in half. There's several things. Sexual reproduction, though, is when you take DNA from one thing and you mix it with DNA from another thing, right? What's the advantage of that? Yeah, everybody's different genetically. We have genetic variation. That's the term we want to use. And that's good, because if some kind of disease, for example, came along, some of us are probably going to get it. But some of us probably aren't, because why?
Different DNA.
You have different DNA, different genes, and some of those genes turn out, in a lot of cases, to be protective. Like the Black Death, when it was going around. A lot of people died. Some people never got sick. And why did a lot of those people not get sick? They were immune to it. If Ebola was to become airborne, and you could catch it through the air, which hopefully it won't, some of us would probably never get sick. A lot of us would die. It would be ugly. But that's the beauty of sexual reproduction. That's its purpose, to take our genes and make us all different, genetically different. All right, what's a gamete? Sex cell. It's like a sperm or an egg. And in terms of DNA, how much DNA should be in a gamete?
46.
All right.
64.
Half the normal amount, which is 23 chromosomes, right? Half the normal. It's called haploid. Half the normal amount. All right, we also talked a little bit about flowers, because a lot of people think flowers reproduce how? Asexually. But I said that's wrong for the most part. A flower is actually what? It's the sex organs of a plant. That's its purpose, is to reproduce sexually with other plants. So plants usually reproduce sexually. Make sure you know that. We talked. Did we get to heredity? Did we talk about heredity?
Yes.
So we moved pretty fast then. Yeah.
And trees, asexual.
Nope. Trees are sexual too. Trees. Most trees right here, they have smaller flowers, so you don't notice them as much. Like a pine tree, for example. What's the sex organs there? The cones. So those are sex organs as well.
I've never
When it closes up and
That's what a cone is.
when it closes up and hits the ground, like when it's not when isn't that when it's like trying to get something that's naturally from the ground?
All right, now normally the way that cone works, normally it starts out closed up. The female cone. The big cones are the female parts. The male cones are the little bitty things that look sort of like little worms. If you go under a pine tree, you'll see them laying on the ground because they've fallen off by now. They look like little worms. They shoot out pollen. Essentially, what's pollen? It's sperm. Pine tree, how does the pollen get from one pine tree to the other? Not in pine trees. In most plants, that's true, but not in pine trees. It gets there in the wind. It just blows in the wind. What does that mean about the amount of pollen that pine trees need to make? They better make a lot, because what are the odds that one pollen grain is going to make it to an egg? If you're just throwing it up in the wind. It's almost none, all right? So, like in early March, just a few months ago, you probably noticed that the cars were all covered with that green, yellow, dusty stuff. That's pine tree pollen around here. Because they have to make a ton of it. It's not very efficient, but it works. But the female cones usually start out closed, and then when they get fertilized, when the pollen gets in there, eventually the seeds get ready to open, and still hanging on the tree, and what falls out? Seeds. And the pine tree seeds have like a little helicopter propeller on them. And when they fall, that little helicopter propeller blows in the wind and takes the seed away from the parent. Because if you're a plant, you want your babies around you. Because if they're around you, what are you going to do to them? Yeah, you're probably going to kill them because you're going to block their sun, you're going to take their water, you're going to take their nutrients. So you want to get your babies away from you, and that's what the little propeller is all about. All right, let's talk about heredity, the next one. Heredity is sort of the passing on of what? Genes, traits. And we talked about these three words up here on the board, DNA and gene and chromosome. And I tried to make sure you knew the difference. Yeah.
What does DNA mean then?
All right, DNA, you don't really need to know what it stands for right now, but it stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. But for right now, you don't need to worry about that. What I want you to know about DNA right now is that DNA is a chemical. It's a chemical. What kinds of organisms have DNA? Every living thing. Even almost all viruses have DNA. There's a few exceptions, but what's the job of DNA in your body? The one job. DNA really only has one job in any living thing. What is
The
it?
code or
The code for what? It codes for proteins. It says, hey, I need this protein, and here's how to build it. That's what DNA is. I need this protein, and here's how you build it. What does that tell you about proteins? If all DNA does is code for proteins, what does that tell you about proteins? They're pretty important. That they make you work. Proteins are the pieces that make you up and make you work. They're really, really important. But DNA is the chemical. A gene is a small piece of DNA. A small piece of DNA that codes for what? A single what? A single trait, or we might say a single, well, we're talking about a gene. A gene is a small piece of DNA that codes for a single trait, or we might say a single protein. One protein, a specific protein. That's a gene. What's the difference between a gene and a chromosome? Yeah. Yeah, a chromosome is a big piece of DNA, a big molecule of DNA. We might use this model right here. If this is a big old piece of DNA, what's each one of these little blocks? Those are genes. So you might think of a chromosome as a chain of genes. And how many of these chromosomes do we say you have in each of your cells? 46. And the only exception to that should be what? What cells don't have 46? What cells have half of 46? No? No? Well, we just talked about it a second ago. What cells in your body have half the normal number? Sex cells, sperm, eggs. Did you say it already? Sorry. All right, so let's go to our next characteristic, and that's metabolism. We sort of already talked about it. We said two definitions for metabolism. How fast you use energy, or the sum of what?
chemical reactions in your body.
Chemical reactions in your body. That's metabolism. And a term that's going to be real important later in this class, enzymes. Enzymes are proteins. Probably the most important proteins in your body. What do? Yeah, they cause chemical reactions to happen faster than they normally would. Anybody know another word we might use for enzyme? Starts with the C. Anybody want to finish it up? Catalyst. Catalyst. If I looked at one of you guys and I said, man, he's just a catalyst for trouble. What does that mean? He just starts it up, right? He just starts it up, right? If we could say enzymes are catalysts, that means they're proteins that start up reactions. They make reactions happen. I think that's all we're going to say about metabolism for right now. We'll come back to some of these other terms later. All living things have a metabolism, though. And then I think this is the last one in our list, homeostasis. What does the root word homo or homeo mean? Or no? Same. Stay the same. Here's what homeostasis is. And I'll give you a definition in a second. But there's some things in your body that you need to keep pretty much the same all the time. What would be an example of something that needs to stay almost the same?
Temperature.
Your body temperature. Yeah. Yeah. How much oxygen's in your blood? Your heart rate. Your breathing rate. The pH of your blood, how acidic or how basic your blood is. There's a ton of your pulse, your blood pressure, those blood sugar levels. Those things need to stay almost the same all the time. That's what homeostasis is. It's regulating certain things in your body and keeping them at a certain level. Everybody with me on that? Regulating certain things in your body and keeping them at a certain level all the time. Homeostasis. One term we'll talk about related to that is something called negative feedback. Let me go back to the previous slide to talk about it. Here's like a heating system set up in your house. You got a thermostat. Here's your furnace that makes the heat, So it's a loop. Well, let's say that it's winter and you set your thermostat to 70. It's really cold outside like it was this winter. If your thermos is off, what starts happening in your house pretty fast? It starts getting cold. Well, as soon as the temperature drops a degree or two below 70, what does the thermostat do? It sends out a message, right? Who's it send out a message to? The furnace. And it says, hey, it's time to turn on. Thermostat turns on. Or the furnace, rather, turns on. It starts making heat. What happens to the house? It starts warming up, getting closer and closer to what? 70, which is homeostasis for our house, right? That's where we want it to be. When the temperature gets to 70, 71, what does that tell the thermostat to do? Stop. That's why this is called negative feedback. Negative meaning what?
No.
Get back to homeostasis and then what? What's the negative part mean? Get back to homeostasis and then stop what you're doing. Okay? Negative feedback is a way to get you back to where you're supposed to be. In this example, 70. Does that make sense? Negative feedback, when your body is doing something to get you back to where you need to be. For example, let's talk about your blood sugar for just a second. What's it called when you have problems with your blood sugar, specifically if it's too high? Diabetes. And what can that cause to happen if your blood sugar is too high?
You lose your body parts like limbs.
Yeah, it can cause you to have circulation problems. You have to have limbs removed. It can cause problems with your eyes. It can cause coma. It can like go to sleep and never wake up kind of things. I think there's lots of issues that can cause, but it can be controlled. But in a person without diabetes, there's these two hormones that help you to control it. Anybody know what they are? Insulin is one of them. Close. It's called glucagon. So insulin, and this other one called the glucagon. Now, both of those hormones are made by what organ? The pancreas. So let's say that I'm trying to break this habit, but for a long time, I've been working here at Buck Point 20-some years. The breakfast that I eat almost every morning, and I'm trying to break this habit, is have like a Dr. Pepper or a Mountain Dew and a little Debbie cake. That is a great breakfast, right? Breakfast of champions. As soon as I eat that, what's happening in my body? It's pretty much pure sugar, right? So what happens to my blood sugar level?
It goes high.
Shoots up. When a person, I don't have diabetes, so in a person without diabetes, what does that tell the pancreas? It's time to make some insulin. So insulin is released. And remember, insulin is like a message, right? That's what hormones are. They're messengers, they're signals. And that goes out to cells all over your body, and it's basically telling those cells what? What's insulin telling the cells in your body? There's too much sugar in my blood, you need to do what? Take it out of the blood, absorb it, store it for later. That's what insulin tells your body to do. Take sugar out of the blood, store it, because you might need it later, right? You don't need it right now, you got too much right now, take it out and store it. On the other hand, let's say that today I was in a hurry and I skipped breakfast. No breakfast. And let's say that I was teaching a third block class and I had last lunch, which is what, like almost 2 o'clock or something, right? Yeah. Last lunch is crazy late. And what's going to be going on with my blood sugar about 12:30 or 1 o'clock? If I had eaten all day, it's going to be dropping, right? So when it drops to a certain level, that becomes a problem. Hold that thought. For Aaliyah Woolridge. Where's Aaliyah? All right, so back to what I was saying. Blood sugar's dropped really, really low. So the pancreas is going to start sending out what message? What do we say the message? What's the other message that the pancreas can send out?
Insulin.
Glucagon. Glucagon gets sent out when the blood sugar is too low. Insulin gets sent out when it's what? When it's too high. So the glucagon goes out. Remember, it's like a signal. It's like a message. And it's telling the cells in your body what? My blood sugar is too low. It's time for you to do what? Put some in, right? Put some sugar into the blood. You stored it up. earlier, now we need it. Put it back into the blood. So those two hormones do opposite things. Insulin's job is to do what to blood sugar? Cause it to go down. Glucagon's job is to cause it to go up. Sometimes these two hormones are said to be antagonistic. What does that mean, antagonistic?
They fight each other.
It means they're against each other, right? But really, by being against each other, they're working for you, right? Because they're keeping your blood sugar where it needs to be. Does that make sense?
So it's like diabetes when like your pancreas doesn't make enough of those.
There's a couple different kinds of diabetes, actually several kinds, but the most common ones, if you get diabetes as a young person, anybody know what usually happens? What causes it?
Too much.
Sometimes the pancreas controls.
So, something has happened, a lot of times it's your immune system, has attacked your pancreas and destroyed its ability to make insulin, or at least slowed down its ability to make insulin. It's usually an autoimmune disease. Can be like a viral infection sometimes, can do it too, like some kind of virus. As you get older and you get diabetes, what usually causes it in older people?
Bad diet.
Yeah, your bad diet and what?
Not enough exercise.
You're just really heavy. You just got really fat and you're not eating the right diet. That's
It's a twig.
That's what usually causes it in older people. But in younger people, it's usually an immune system or a virus infection. All right. All right, so we're going to stop there for a minute. Let me turn this off.